Well, welcome to another edition of Lexicon Live. This month we're focusing on, hey, you wanted all of the data on site and then COVID hit, and why the legal industry literally can't survive without cloud-based software. That seems like a pretty bold claim, Brad.
Yes, it's so important that you move to the cloud. There's so many reasons that we need to take that jump. And in many cases, the industry is moving that way, such as your office products. But it's more important than that. It's so important that we have to be able to understand what that move means to us. And we're going to cover that today in the slides moving forward.
Great. As a reminder, we're Lexicon. We provide both a practice management software solution that is the most holistic in the industry, and then we seamlessly integrate with a variety of services. So depending on your firm's needs, we can definitely help you out, whether that's answering the phones for you, providing HR advice and recruiting help, providing even information technology as a service, providing you with technical assistance and even help desk.
And continuing that journey to the cloud.
Absolutely. I'm Scott Brennan. I'm the CEO of Lexicon, and I'm joined by Brad.
Hi, I'm Brad Paubel, the CIO of Lexicon.
Great. So today we're going to focus on access, integration, security and storage, and then maintenance, and how being in the cloud actually makes all of those better for you and your firm. If you have any questions, feel free to submit them to the chat while you're viewing. We'll be sure that we respond to your question real time. So some fun facts, Brad, and then we can talk about the why behind some of these things.
Sure.
So going into COVID, 41% of firms had a disaster plan in place. But if you look at solo practitioners, only 21% of solo practitioners had disaster plans in place as it relates to business continuity and their servers and their IT systems. And if you look at it another way, 31% of law firms have no cloud-based infrastructure whatsoever. Only 58% of law firms have any cloud-based services. So, Brett, I think what that means is you have a mixture of on-prem and cloud.
That's right. It's that hybrid solution. And I think a lot of times what people miss is that, like Microsoft Office, that is a piece of the cloud. And I think we're seeing the numbers tick up because there's that steady move. But what we're really talking about here is that practice software, that move to the cloud, so that when that disaster hits, like a COVID, like anything else that would happen, you have the access and the things that you need in order to continue to do business. So I think the numbers are a little bit misleading from the fact that people don't understand they're truly in the cloud, but what it is anytime you're using that Office products, that Google products, those are in the cloud, which is a great transition for your firm. But it also lets you know that, if you're already moving in that direction, it's not that scary to take that leap, but it's so important, and that's why the industry is moving in that direction.
All right, so maybe talk to us a little bit about what is a cloud-based system.
Yeah, I get that a lot. What is the cloud? Is it just out there? Where does it go? It depends upon who you're talking to kind of understand their depth of knowledge in this specific topic. So what is the cloud? Basically what we're saying is all of the computing processing that you have is now located somewhere else. It's not actually in a cloud, obviously, but it's in a centralized data center. But the positives to that is so great because, one, you don't have to maintain it. And we'll cover all these details later, but it's more secure, it's up to date, it's ready and available for you wherever you're at. But basically what it's saying is we're centralizing all of that computing capabilities into a location. And then, of course, we have it geographically dispersed so that in case a disaster occurs, you can pick it up, whether that's East Coast, West Coast, whether it's in another country or whatever it may be. So basically what you're doing is you're moving away from that on-prem stuff, that things that you have in your closet, that's networks, things like that, and moving it more to the outside. And it's actually a lot more compatible too. So I think people get confused by it, but it's pretty easy to understand. You're just basically taking it from on-prem and moving it somewhere else, but in a secure fashion that is even more secure than keeping it in your closet. And I know a lot of firms are concerned about that. Is that secure? And we're going to cover that a little bit later as well.
And then on-prem, the antithesis.
Oh, yeah, it's actually just the opposite. So what is on-premises software? It's basically software that you have at your location. It's in your closet, that server that you have in your closet, the laptop that you have at your desk, the desktop that you have right there in front of you. It's physically located with you at your location. And that's, that's something that we think about. That's why that information is actually stored where you're at. It's on your hard drive at your desk. It's in the server that's in your closet. That is on-premises software.
All right, so we can pretty much sum up the major differences between an on-premise solution and a cloud-based solution, right? And it's going to come down to a few really key differences. The first is, how accessible is that information regardless of where you are on Earth? Does on-prem or cloud win that fight, Brad?
Sure, absolutely. Cloud always wins that, because wherever you have internet access, you'll be able to access your information. So that's the key. It could be, the Wi-Fi at your house. It could be Wi-Fi somewhere else. Wherever you have cell service, things like that, you'll be able to access your information. And I know that I'm going to mention it several times today from a security perspective. People always like, oh, is that secure? It actually is more secure, and we'll talk about that a little bit later too.
Yeah, and other key differences, and maybe some misperceptions out there. What is the more affordable solution between on-prem and cloud-based storage and cloud-based systems?
Right. Well, cloud-based storage as well as cloud-based systems are much more cheaper, and why that is because you have commodity of scale. You're able to look across all of the storage that are out there, make sure it's separated so that we don't have a crossing of information, but yet the amount of it that's available at these locations far exceed whatever you could buy at home. So think of it this way. You could buy a hard drive at home, cost $200, $300, $400 for that hard drive, store the information locally, and continue to add those type of hard drives. Whereas in the cloud, we have access to an unlimited amount of storage that then we can be segregated out to be specific for you. And since that's such a large amount, pulling out a terabyte even of storage is not that much. So definitely win cloud-based, hands down.
All right, and if my office is flooded when the river overruns its banks after the snow melts, am I better off having an on-prem solution or a cloud-based solution?
Well, definitely a cloud-based solution, because for one, if you flood, you've just wiped out everything. So that's definitely not good. But literally, just like when COVID hit, wherever you're at, as long as you have that internet access, you'll be able to get to your information and continue your business. And what's so great too about cloud-based systems is don't think about it just from a technology perspective. Cloud-based systems are capable for phone, for all of the different things. You have cell phones, think of that. That's actually utilizing information that's stored in a lot of cases in many places, storing your photos, other places, things like that. So kind of keep that in mind. We're all moving towards the cloud in various ways. You may not just see it every day.
All right, so again, the four big benefits of being or using a cloud-based practice management software for your firm. Their access, as you said, I can access that data from anywhere on Earth. It's integration. And what do we mean by integration? I know we'll cover it later, but...
Sure, just quickly, with the newer technology that's inside the cloud, what you're able to do is you're able to integrate with other software, other technologies much more efficiently. So when you have on-prem, think about this. You have to actually figure out what's compatible with your existing on-prem instances, what's compatible with that software, things like that. When you make that transition to the cloud, Scott, what you're really able to do is take any of the technology that's newer that are out in the industry and be able to integrate it, whether it's an API, whether it's, or for those that don't know, basically what you're doing is getting information from another system and integrating it into the system that you have, but you have unlimited capability. I like to think of it sort of like smart homes nowadays. I'm not sure if many people have, the different Google or Microsoft devices. You can turn on and off lights. That's all because it's moving towards the cloud. It's very exciting.
All right, and then security and storage. I think we've talked about both of those little bit.
Security, we can't stop mentioning it enough, Scott. It's so important because, one thing I want to mention is it kind of allows you to take a step back. While you should always be diligent, you don't have to worry about, am I running the latest patch? Am I running the latest version of that software? Whereas in the cloud, that's taken care of for you. So it's kind of a nice step.
All right, and then lastly, maintenance. What's the total cost of ownership?
Oh my gosh, yes. Think about many times when you have on-prem, you either have an IT group, you have an outsourced IT group that helps you with that. You have to make sure that you're upgrading. You have to make sure you're upgrading the hardware. How many times do we know, Scott, that they change even the basic plug on how you plug in your phone or your different devices? That's what I'm talking about from a maintenance perspective. You're always looking to upgrade your phone or your computer. It's a different kind of plug. A higher CPU comes out. Whereas in the cloud, that kind of transitions with you as you go, and you don't have to maintain it. So it's a lot easier for you.
So benefit of having cloud-based management software, specifically about access. I know we've spoken about it a little bit, but just a quick reminder, all the benefits.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So let's just think about it. It's still fresh in people's mind, COVID. You know, you had a lot of people that needed to very quickly work from home. Well, you can't do that unless you have a cloud-based instance, that you have access to all of your information. It's so important that you have that capability to access the information where you need it. So it opens up the world to you. Basically, like Scott said, wherever you have internet access, wherever you want in the world, you'll be able to access. And it's really convenient from that perspective because you can do business literally any time of the day.
Right, so it drives real-time data, which allows you to make decisions in a much faster way. It's scalable, so as I add attorneys, I don't need to buy more licenses. I don't need to buy a bunch of hardware to go along with it. I just need somebody to have access to the internet. Things automatically sync in the cloud, but if I've got a server sitting in a closet, it's not automatically syncing. Somebody has to go and push a button, make something happen, update the software, push through the latest security patch, and then faster deployment. You know, what does that mean to the layman, Brad?
Well, think about this, and I like to relate it to other things that maybe people are more used to seeing. So think about it as simple as downloading an app. When you download the app, right, you click on it, you're not really downloading it. What you're really doing is allowing your connection to the internet, wherever it is, to get that information and play that game, whatever it may be. So a faster deployment, you purchase the software from a license perspective, it's instantly turned on. You may get access via an email or whatever it may be. You're there right away. Whereas let's look at the contrast on-prem. What do you have to do? You have to actually install it on the server. You have to make sure that you get the right people get access to it. You have to build that connection to it, right? When we already all have a connection to the internet. So you have to kind of go through all of those steps from an on-prem perspective, whereas the cloud-based systems or get you access just right away. And that's one thing that I like about it. It's really what people are used to more like at home from utilizing cell phones or whatever it may be. So you get that instant deployment.
All right, and then integration. Let's talk about integration and how does the cloud enable you to more seamlessly connect to other industry software that you might use?
Sure. So a lot of times we refer to things as the Internet of Things. It's kind of funny that I went that route with it. But yes, the Internet of Things, everything that's out there that you can integrate with. So do things basic. Let's talk about email. So how easy is it to integrate email in with existing systems that are in the cloud? Well, it's very simple because one, a lot of email is already in the cloud. We talked about that a little bit earlier from a Microsoft perspective or a Google perspective. Whatever that is, it's merely just a connection. And what's so great about that connection is you can also secure that connection coming over. So it's not giving up a password or anything like that. It's actually a secure connection for you to be able to do your work all in one spot. And that gives you the access that you need for those analytics, real-time information. It's really nice because everything is up to date, therefore it makes the integration seamless and merely a lot of times just a couple clicks away. So let's talk a little bit more about just kind of security, storage going into that. There was a 300% increase in reported cyber crimes since COVID. Think about this, and I want to go into a little bit of detail. So basically what you did is you had people that were at work now at home. So it's important when you think about that transition that the people that you partner with are secure. So in the case of a cloud-based system, if that is a secure, which a lot of times it is, you know, you have that most up-to-date, you have the software's up-to-date, you have to make sure the connection is secure. So what people thought is, oh, people are moving at home. That's a great opportunity for us to try to attack those vulnerabilities from a home perspective and collect information because they may be trying to download that software that they had at work that was on-prem on their home PCs. They may be trying to work from their home PCs that aren't secure. So think about this. If you're a cloud-based solution, you're coming in, you're just using the internet to a secure location. Whereas if you were on-prem and trying to install it locally, then what you've done is you basically installed it on your PC. Now, is your whole PC secure? So a lot of the bad actors took this as an opportunity to try to advance, collecting that information from you and those that are out there. So it increased by 300%. And then 43% of cyber attacks targeted small businesses. And it was that same opportunity. Are you at home? Are you trying to install things? So it really has grown to be, this huge industry. And actually, an article was just recently published that it actually is, cybercrimes is the third largest economy in the world, right behind the United States and China.
Yeah, the other important fact to keep in mind is, according to the ABA, up to 42% of law firms have experienced a data breach. So, lawyers are being targeted. The amount of information, the type of information that a law firm has is going to be the kind of information that cybercriminals find very useful to perpetuate even more crimes. It's going to include, if you're an estate planning attorney, the names of your family, the names of your parents.
Financial
information. All of the things that they're going to need to then get into your banking records and then get into another set of information that's going to open the door for further crime. So you'll see that they'll come at you from lots of different ways. If you're in a cloud-based environment, it's that much harder for them to get into your system because everything is then protected by that cloud-based security wall.
One thing to note too, Scott, is just like what you said, they're looking for just little pieces of information, because what bad actors, those criminals that are coming in to try to collect information about you, they're looking for your name here by this means. Then they're looking for your phone number. Then they're looking for your bank account information. And they tie it all together to paint this picture to be able to truly exploit your finances or blackmail or whatever it may be. So they will try multiple different ways, and it's so important that you're protected, and that's why it's so important that your information is secure in something like a cloud-based system that actually monitors coming in and coming out information, making sure that nobody can follow the information going in or out. It's just so important.
Yeah. In ours, just within Lexicon, the attorneys can collaborate and send documents to their clients, and that document doesn't need to leave the secure environment, because you can extend the ability to review a document in the cloud to even somebody who is not an employee of the firm. That's a huge advantage over email. And it's great. If you use email to send documents, please use VPN. It's more secure than regular email. But email is a very, very common way for cyber criminals to get into an organization and to intercept an email. If it's not encrypted and if it's not within that cloud environment, you're really opening up your firm to a potential cyber crime instance.
And I want to take it a step further, Scott. You had mentioned that inside of the Lexicon software, you have the capability to be able to actually view the information that's still within inside of that secure environment. We also have the capability to pull that information back. So if we're saying, oh, this can only be viewed for 5 days or until the case is closed or whatever it may be, we have that capability, which is even further security. And it allows us to make sure we know where the information is, who's seeing it. It's very important.
Other benefits of cloud-based practice management software around data security and storage.
Sure. There's so much benefit from a security perspective. And I want to cover it. I know we're talking about cloud-based data security, storage, things like that. But let's talk about it. When you're sitting at home and you're on the internet, right, the information is being passed from what you're typing in out to the cloud. And I just want to explain this a little bit just so people out there can understand it a little bit more. It's basically, think of it as ones and zeros, like we all talk about it, passing across the internet. One thing that's very interesting and that I like about the software is it really salts that. So think of it this way. You have a 101 that means the word the. In our software, what it does is it takes it and spreads that out completely over the internet, so the T, the H, and the E will never be in the exact same location. And then it compiles it back on the back end. So even if there's a way for people to sniff the network, is what they call it, from understanding what's transmitting from your house, they wouldn't be able to put that together. So there's lots of benefits from a security perspective. And then once you get to the cloud, then of course you're talking about the latest software, you're talking about the latest patches, and you're talking about backup that's available. So in case anything would ever happen, you have that information readily available to you, even if there was some kind of disaster or anything like that. And it's really the level of encryption, that we do. We want to make sure that everything's protected. And you may ask, well, what about if I send a document to the software? What if that document is actually already infected? Well, that's taken care of too, because once it hits the software, it's scanned at that time and either cleaned, or it's notified that there is something wrong with it. So you actually get a peace of mind in understanding if that is taking place and take the appropriate action before it's even put into the system.
Yeah, and that's Lexicon software. We can't
Yes.
speak for all cloud-based document
Yes,
storage
absolutely.
systems.
So one of the things that I wanted to bring up just to further the point of cloud-based solutions, and this is actually very scary from a standpoint of data collection and people that are out there. So what had happened was there are older Exchange on-prem servers that are out there, 2013, 2014, 2015, whatever it may be that are out there. There was actually an exploit found. And what that means is basically people found a way to get into those servers. It goes a little bit further, and this really happened in March at Microsoft, is that exploit was found, and then that information was actually posted publicly so that anybody, even with no knowledge of coding, could download that source code and actually get into any Exchange server across the world. But let's talk about what could they get once they got in there. Anything that was in your email. So anything that was saved, that could be your photos, it could be your files, it could be your names, your contacts, your phone numbers. Any document, any information in that document is very, very scary, because that exploit went live, Scott. Once it went live, and it literally an hour later, there was over 30,000 companies in the United States alone that was actually impacted within the first hour. Then after that, it continued to grow, and still to this day, because people haven't patched or made that transition to the cloud, it's still occurring because people aren't paying attention to those security breaches that are out there, or those warnings. So it's very, very, very scary that all of that information may be stolen or taken from you, and you may not even know it. You would never see this in your day-to-day, like checking your email or anything like that, because they can come in and just make a copy of it.
Right. And it's enabled because it falls on whoever controls that server in the closet to actually push those patches through, keep that software up to date. And these machines had hit a point where that support wasn't even available from Microsoft anymore. They've assumed at this point you've upgraded to something newer. If you're in the cloud, those updates happen automatically all the time. So there's no opportunity to fall 8 generations behind on a security patch. You are always sitting on the most recent, the most up-to-date security. As you know, the people who are after this information are regularly trying to come up with new ways to break down the newest security wall that Microsoft or Apple or Google have put in place. So you want to give yourself the best advantage possible by always having the newest security protocols protecting your information.
Absolutely. You know, I just recently read that there were several companies, they had written transcripts from other companies talking about this exploit, and they didn't even know that they had an on-prem Exchange server. So that was very scary for them once they found out that their information had been taken. So it's so important that you move that to the cloud. This did not impact the cloud at all.
Yeah, and so specific to the legal industry, which we all practice in, as a lawyer, you actually have some ethics rules that apply to you specific to cybersecurity breaches, right? So there's the rule 1.6 around confidentiality of information obviously applies, but there's also been additional ethics opinions that have been issued that actually say if you have been and you find out that you've been part of a breach, it is an obligation upon you to notify anybody whose data was breached, and then that becomes public. In the last 6 months, there have been several firms who have had major breaches that have resulted in not just the trade press, not just legal press covering these breaches, but they've actually made mainstream media, mainstream news covering stories about these law firms that have been breached. And that has definitely made a negative impact on their financial situation, the trust that their clients have in them, and I'm sure it's led to a loss of clients and a loss of business. And then there's the knock-on effect of potential allegations about malpractice and whether you could be the subject of a lawsuit from somebody who feels that you were negligent in protecting their data. And for those of you who practice in Europe or the state of California, there are more restrictions placed upon you and more obligations placed upon you than if you're practicing in other parts of the US. So to the extent that you have business that takes place in those other operating zones, you need to meet the requirements in the jurisdictions in which you're practicing. And now we'd like to have Lauren just give you guys a quick demo of the Lexicon software, especially as it relates to our security protocols and then document management.
We know how important security is within the legal industry. That's why one of our biggest priorities when developing this software was ensuring that it was as secure as it possibly could be. You'll see many features built into the software, such as multi-factor authentication when you log in. We do offer bank-grade encryption, so you can ensure that all of your data, regardless of it being in transmission or at rest, is completely secure. And then there's other features such as document scanning as well. So every time that you upload documents within the system, they get scanned to make sure they are 100% secure. Another option that we have within Lexicon to allow secure access to the system is our groups feature under the admin settings. You can see here that we can name a group. Let's go ahead and say this one is paralegal. You can go ahead and add every paralegal within your firm to this group. And everybody that is added to this group is going to automatically inherit all of these permissions. That way you can ensure that certain roles within your firm only have access to the areas that they need to have access to. So as you go to create new matters within Lexicon, you can ensure that the entire matter creation process is going to be secure from the beginning all the way until the time that the case is closed. So here we have our navigation bar that walks us through the matter creation process. Right off the bat, when you're entering those matter details, you do have an option to block employees. So if there is somebody at your firm who maybe has some sort of relationship with this client, or maybe they have some sort of relationship with anybody that's related to this specific matter, you can block them from this specific matter. Another option that we have here is uploading documents. So as I mentioned earlier, document management is fully built into the Lexicon system. Therefore, while you're creating a new matter, you are going to get prompted to upload any relevant documents. During that time, you can choose whether or not you want that to become a template for future use. Again, you can choose a folder location, any document categories, and any specific co-owners. So you can see here then, once you upload the document, you do have this status bar at the bottom. It's going to let you know that the document is being scanned and once the upload is actually complete. So what you don't see in the background is we're actually scanning that document just to make sure it is 100% secure. And if there are any sort of bugs or anything that's potentially wrong with that document, we're going to let you know so that you don't risk uploading it into your system. And as you go to actually work on documents within the system, there are additional levels of security built in there as well. So one, for example, if someone is working on a document, you can hover over this tooltip and see who's working on it and the date and time that they began working on it. You also have an option to view a checkout history and version history. So there's that complete audit history built into the system. And then additionally on top of that, you can manage your document access. So say you did need to send this document electronically to a third party, you do have an option to set a custom share expiration date. So if the document itself is a little bit more sensitive and you only want to give access for maybe 24 to 48 hours, you can do that. However, if it's more of a general standard document, you can go ahead and set that share expiration date as maybe a week out. It's really up to you. And then lastly, when it comes to billing, so similar to document management, billing and credit card processing is also built into the Lexicon platform. So you have that secure payment gateway built in, and you don't have to use a third-party platform anymore to accept payments. So when it comes time to actually invoice your client, you can send those invoices electronically and get paid quicker and more in full. One other thing I did want to mention is that we do have a full IT team on site, and we do provide additional IT services. So if there's anything from hardware to software to cybersecurity help that you need within your firm, reach out to us and we can help there as well. Otherwise, back to today's webinar.
Thank you so much for the demo, Lauren. So let's talk about the benefits of maintenance. We mentioned this a little bit earlier in the presentation, but there's quite a bit to that. And I think a lot of times firms don't realize how much money they actually spend on this. If it's not your time, if you're a solo attorney in a firm and maybe you're actually doing these type of items yourself, or if you're outsourcing to another company, whatever it may be, a lot of time is spent around these types of updates, making sure the systems are updated, making sure they're secure, all of those type of things. Whereas if you make that transition, the updates and maintenance are automatic. Software is the newest version. It really cuts down on that time that you have to spend, and it's peace of mind. So that's really, I think, more important. But it allows you to really focus on what you do best, how you want to manage your business, practice the law that you need to in order to make your business successful. It's a lot easier to make that transition. I don't know if I'm speaking to some people that have been using technology for a while. I'm not sure if you remember the massive updates when you used to get the CDs for Microsoft Word or whatever it may be and install the latest versions, how long that took. You had to wait for those installs, things like that. Whereas as you transition to more and more cloud-based technology, those things occur instantly.
All right, and then so specifically for the legal industry, again, why do you care? What is important about the cloud? And Brad, do you want to
Sure.
walk us through the list?
Sure. So there's quite a bit of benefits here. So one of the big benefits is access anytime, anywhere. So whether it's a disaster, whether you're having fun on vacation, whatever it may be, you'll be able to access your information when you need to, middle of the night, whatever it may be. The other thing that is just equally important is you have all of your information. It's encrypted, it's protected, it's secure, all centralized in that location so that you know that you're safe, that you can get that information whether something occurs or not. It's geographically dispersed. You can collect it from different locations that it is at so that any one disaster won't actually cause a true disaster with your business. Security, we've mentioned it so many times today, but it is so important that information going in is secure. Once you get there, I think the key with cloud that I want to make sure that is true for a lot of the systems that are out there is that once you get into the cloud, they take care of that patching for you. They take care of that newer software. And of course, the Lexicon software protects you then coming information in. It protects the documents that you would send to it, and of course gives you that viewing capability for your customers within inside of that secure environment. So we always have, I mentioned it, the backup, the disaster recovery. Anytime that you want to, you would never lose time in tracking a matter. It's all there for you. You don't have to go back and say, oh, I need to recover from this date. No, it's all right there. You'll never have to go back in time from that perspective. All of that information would be available to you. And of course, the savings. We talk about the maintenance fees. We talk about everything related to it. It really is a lot cheaper to make that transition to the cloud. It keeps things, more up to date. It allows you to focus where you need to and at a lesser cost. And then, of course, all of the large providers in the cloud provide that uptime guarantee, and they continue to go up. We're looking at 4 nines in a lot of cases with some of the larger players that are out there in the cloud.
When you say 4 nines, just to make sure, it means 99.9999%.
Yep, that you have to think about that. That's, and they calculate that from a year perspective. So, that doesn't give you, it's really, think about your cable service or something like that. You'll think, oh gosh, that goes down a lot. You're not going to see that from a cloud provider. Think of all the customers, they would have $1 million in service fee or SLA penalties, things like that. So the guarantee is definitely up there and it's backed. So it's a positive experience as we move forward.
All right, so we'd love for you to come reach out to us, schedule a demo, lexiconservices.com, /demo, or go to the site, check out all of the services that we offer. We're running a special right now around free installation except for data migration. So we'll help you set up your instance. That could be up to a $2,500 value depending on the complexity of the firm and your setup. So please reach out to us right away. Let us walk you through the use of the software, and hopefully we can get you on board. We'd also like you to listen to our podcast. Brad is actually the co-host of the podcast. We run a longer format, in-depth exploratory podcast called The Lex Factor. And then we have a Lex Factor Briefs, which focuses on shorter stories that are usually going to be the rip from the headlines, timely topics that are on lawyers' minds right now. And we just share our perspective and let you know what's going on in the world. Don't forget, we offer both software and services that integrate seamlessly into the software. So we allow you to focus on practicing law. Anything that's not really key to your firm's success, let us handle. Brett and I would like to thank you for your time today. Feel free to reach out to Lexicon if you have any other questions about how we might be able to engage with your firm to make things better for you. Thanks very much.
Thank you.